Hi, everybody. Welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. My name is Jared. And oh my gosh, every day that goes by just gets stranger and stranger. So I have two new items on my Second Coming timeline spreadsheet. I have this one, and they both happen on the same day. So the first one that I have is new steeple of Notre Dame Cathedral revealed. You might remember that there was a fire back in 2019 that burned the cathedral. In fact, I have some images here. Okay. So there you have the steeple. It falls because of the fire, right? And so there's been this renovation going on with the Notre Dame Cathedral. All right. So that steeple was just revealed, like the scaffolding has been removed, and now it's revealed so you can view it clearly. On the same day, okay, the final newly reinforced steeple of the Salt Lake Temple Central Spire put into place. You guys, we have a lot to talk about in this video. There's a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about the 2022 First Presidency Christmas Devotional when President Oaks talked about cathedrals, and he actually showed a picture of the Notre Dame Cathedral in that devotional in his talk. We're going to talk about just all the interesting details that go along with this. Now, I want to give credit to Christian Fire Poppy channel. She was texting me and told me about this, so I went ahead and made my video. I wasn't able to get a hold of her. I tried to call, but I want to talk to her about this. But I'm pretty sure if you watch her video, just put out a little while ago, I guarantee she's going to have more things that she picked out that I didn't notice. So I would encourage you to watch her video as well. I'll put a link for it in the description box below, and then make sure to subscribe to her. Both her and I were very like-minded when it comes to these things. So if you enjoy my channel, I'm pretty sure you'll enjoy hers as well. And then if you go to my channel homepage and you scroll down, you'll see my featured channels. So if I were you, I would subscribe to all of them. They all have good content. These are my friends. I really like them. I like their stuff. And so just make sure to check them out. Okay. And then before we jump into it, here's the Flood the Earth Challenge. I updated it yesterday. We're at 8,164 copies of the Book of Mormon that have been shared. We're trying to get to 10,000, and then 879 people that have joined the challenge, and we're trying to get to 1,000 of those. So if you haven't joined the challenge yet, I would encourage you to do so. The purpose of the challenge is not to simply count copies of the Book of Mormon that have been shared. It's supposed to be a motivator tool, okay? So if there's like copies of the Book of Mormon being shared in your ward, or there's a baptism, we're not just tracking random baptisms or people getting the Book of Mormon. We're counting copies of the Book of Mormon that you shared because this challenge inspired you. It's a motivator tool. So once you've done that, just let me know in the comments or send me an email. Let me know how many you shared, or if they started meeting with the missionaries, or if they got baptized, and then I'll update the tracker. And it encourages other people to do the same. It's a motivator tool. I'm not just trying to track random things. And then when you report your copies of the Book of Mormon or baptism or whatever, make sure to include hashtag flood right here at the top left, hashtag flood in the comment or the email. It helps me find, when I do my search, it helps me find your comment or your email. And then in case you didn't see it yesterday, we've had 3 new reports of people meeting with the missionaries, which brings us to 121. So keep up the good work, everybody. This is amazing. It is making a difference in the world. This is making a real difference when you share the gospel. This is what helps the world. This is what helps politics. This is what helps peace, is sharing the gospel. So do that. Okay, now back to this. Okay, so very strange and very interesting that this would happen on the same day. 2 very notable, iconic, landmark buildings, one for our church, one for the Catholic Church in Paris, that both had their spires put on or revealed on the same day, on the very same day. And I think there's something to that. So here we go. First, let's talk about the Salt Lake Temple. Church news. Salt Lake Temple renovation reaches new heights as last of tower spire structures is placed. Some 800 construction team members attend the topping out, quote unquote, ceremony, the placement of the final reinforcing steel pyramid atop the iconic House of the Lord. And so this is the one that's on the west side. Okay. So, and it's, as you can see, you have the other ones already in place. So this is the last one. It's going on that central spire that faces west. So the back of the temple. The extensive multi-year renovation of the Salt Lake Temple reached a pinnacle of sorts Tuesday, February 13th, with the placement of the final reinforcing steel pyramid atop the iconic House of the Lord. For the Salt Lake Temple and its Tuesday topping out, the sixth and final reinforcing steel pyramid was placed on the central west tower and marks the return of the temple's 6 signature towers that were removed for refurbishment nearly 4 years ago. You guys, sometimes, like when we talk about the second coming and when it's going to happen, occasionally someone will say in the comments, well, don't you think that the Salt Lake Temple has to be finished first before the second coming happens? Meaning Christ coming to the world, or pick your second coming, whichever appearance, it doesn't matter. And my answer to that is, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think it would be ideal, but I think that the Lord, when he comes, he's going to come at a time when many are unprepared. And I don't think that this necessarily has to be complete, because it might catch some people unprepared. You'd be surprised sometimes the things that I hear people say. I remember one time I did this video that reached a pretty broad audience, talking about, could this have been the last general conference before the second coming? And I'll never forget this one comment where somebody was like, I don't think that the second coming is going to happen when they just announced some temples. And so that person has a fundamentally flawed understanding of the second coming, because somehow in that person's mind, the fact that temples were announced means that the second coming can't happen, as though there's not going to be temples during the millennium, which we know that there are. One of the primary activities taking place during the millennium is the ordinance work that we do in temples. If anything, we need as many temples as possible. And that's exactly what President Nelson is doing. He's announcing all these different temples. So I think there are a number of people that are kind of complacent. They see the Salt Lake Temple and then it gives them a false sense of security. And that would be a really good time for the Lord to come. You know, a time when you're not expecting, a time when you should already be ready. A time when, you don't think it's going to happen, but it doesn't matter. You're already prepared. You're living the way that you should. You have your temple recommend and you're worthy of the temple recommend. So I don't think this has to be done. The one thing that would make the most sense is if all the earthquake reinforcement is complete before that time, because at the time of the great earthquake, it seems like that great earthquake is going to affect the entire world. So it's going to be a pretty intense earthquake. So it would make sense that at a minimum would have to be done before the second coming, but all the rest of it, I don't know. And the fact that, like it said, what did it say here? That this is what did it say? Let me find it. I just read it right here. The Salt Lake Temple reached a pinnacle of sorts. The placement of the final reinforcing steel pyramid. So in a sense, when you're looking at it from that point of view, just visually from the outside, it looks like the Salt Lake Temple is complete. They have a lot more that they're going to do, but it seems like the bare bones, basic elements of it are pretty much prepared. Now, I don't know if they're completely done with the earthquake reinforcing, but anyway, let's continue. Original construction of a temple in the heart of Salt Lake City began in 1853, with the Salt Lake Temple finally finished and dedicated 40 years later in 1893. We've been talking about that year in some recent videos. That was the year that Wilford Woodruff said that the angels were released to bring the judgments of God on the earth and bring the different disasters and wars and stuff like that. All right. In April 2019 General Conference, President Russell M. Nelson announced plans to renovate and preserve the church's 4 pioneer-era temples in Salt Lake City, St. George, Logan, and Manti. Renovation for the Salt Lake Temple and Temple Square is scheduled for a 2026 completion. The Salt Lake Temple closed for renovations in December 2019, with renovations beginning in earnest in 2020, of all years. For the spires and spire stones, the location of each stone was mapped and cataloged, and each stone tracked and stored for cleaning in anticipation for a return to its original spot. In summer 2023, the first reinforced spire steel plates began to be added to the temple towers, with the refurbished spire stones being returned to their precise locations. Renovations will still reach greater heights prior to completion. The temple's capstone and Angel Moroni statue, including the refurbishing and renovation project, will be replaced at a later date atop the central east spire. And that might be a date to keep an eye on. That right there could symbolize something. It could bring in some event. It could correspond with something else going on in the world. That might be a really important date when that happens. So let's keep that on our radar. And then later, quote, "The spires are iconic because when people see the Salt Lake Temple, the first things they're drawn to are the 6 spires rising into heaven." Yeah, that's interesting how you said that. That was said by Brad Bain, Jacobson's general superintendent overseeing field operations on the project. Okay, so we have this happening. Everyone feels, I think, that the Salt Lake Temple is being prepared for the second coming and to receive Christ when he comes. So now let's talk about the Notre Dame Cathedral. Again, in 2019, it caught fire. The central spire, as you can see, fell down. It was a really big event. I remember when this was happening. It was live on all the news stations, and I couldn't believe it. Let's read a little bit about this. New York Post. Notre Dame's new spire revealed in new milestone following cathedral's devastating fire. Marking a milestone in the in the Notre Dame Cathedral's Renaissance, the scaffolding surrounding the Paris attraction was removed on Tuesday, so the same day as the Salt Lake Temple. The medieval Catholic cathedral scaffolding has been taken down in recent days, revealing the cathedral's new spire for the first time, which is adorned with a golden rooster and a cross. A resident near the cathedral, Federico Bonanni, told the Associated Press that he felt emotional at the sight of the new spire. Quote, "I can open the window in the morning. I see the Notre Dame. I see the spire. It's, for me, beautiful, and it's much better than before. It gives us hope." Yeah. You know what else gives hope? The second coming and the near future, I think, when the second coming happens. The iconic structure was ravaged by a fire in April 2019, leaving it in severe disrepair. Now, this date, April 2019, pay attention to that. We're going to talk about why that's significant in just a minute, but it actually is very significant. So here's a picture of the cathedral. You see the spire. There's the golden rooster at the top. Kind of interesting, on top of the Salt Lake Temple, you're going to have the Angel Moroni when he's put back on top, and he's blowing a horn. He's making a sound, right? And here on the Notre Dame Cathedral, I don't know what other cathedrals do or basilicas, but it's interesting. A golden figure on top of the spire making a sound, in this case, like a crowing sound. Just an interesting thing. Okay, I don't think there was anything else in this. Oh yeah, there is. Okay. In a symbol of resilience and renewal, a new golden rooster, reimagined as a phoenix with flaming feathers, was installed atop the spire in December, marking the cathedral's rise from the ashes. Notre Dame is on track in its renovation process and is expected to reopen December 2024. Now, remember, the Salt Lake Temple was originally scheduled to be complete in sometime, like, if I remember right, late 2024. That was the original plan. So if that had actually taken place, these two would be reopening around the same time. That's interesting to think about. Okay. Was there anything else? No. Okay. Let's move on. Now, now we're in the 2022 Christmas devotional. This was a very Second Coming focused devotional. They brought it up a bunch of different times. If you're interested, just do a search on my channel for Christmas devotional. You should watch it and look at all the things that we've picked out. But one of the things that stood out, and I've never forgotten this, was President Dallin H. Oak's talk called Good Tidings of Great Joy. Okay, and at the very beginning, he says, even in worldly terms, the mortal life of Jesus of Nazareth has had a greater impact on this world and its history than any life ever lived. He has been the principal subject of prophets and poets for thousands of years. The greatest art and music of the Western world have been devoted to celebrating the birth and life and mission of Jesus Christ. Philosophers and theologians have spent their lives studying his teachings. Those teachings have inspired countless works of charity, manifestations of the pure love of Christ. No one has had more monuments to his life and teachings than the Lord Jesus Christ. Now look at this part. This is what caught my attention. This, of course, includes the great cathedrals that dot the landscape in Europe and the Americas, many of them requiring more than a century to construct. And then he puts this on the screen. This is from the devotional. I'll put the link for the devotional in the description box below. We're at the 1 hour, 42 minute, and 57 second mark. And he shows the Notre Dame Cathedral. So remember, the fire had already taken place at this point in 2022. And just this last Tuesday, this Spire, the new Spire has been revealed. Okay, but he's showing the Notre Dame Cathedral here. Let's read a little bit more. He says, more recently, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has 171 dedicated and operating temples and has 129 more in restoration, original construction, design, or just announced by President Russell M. Nelson at our recent October General Conference. These houses of the Lord are on every continent and in 74 nations of the world. There we dedicate our lives to following Jesus Christ. So I thought about this and how in the second coming, we know that there's going to be a large influx of people that join the church. And in process of time, eventually everyone is either going to, like the older generations that hold on to their old beliefs are going to pass away. Or, so if that doesn't happen, either everyone is going to join the church or those older generations are going to pass away. In the process of time, everyone is going to become a member of the church. That's what happens in the millennium. I don't know how long that takes. It may be 1, 2, 3 generations, but at some point that's going to happen. And so it's not hard to imagine that along with that process, you're going to have different buildings that are going to be abandoned because that religion doesn't exist anymore. And I think that a lot of these cathedrals that we see that have taken so long to construct and so much thought was put into it, and they're so pretty and beautiful and aesthetic, they're probably going to fall into the hands of the true church at some point and be converted into temples. Why not? Any building can turn into a temple. All you have to do is renovate it. You may just have to renovate the inside. You may have to add on. There's any number of things that may have to happen, but it's really not that complicated. We've had a number of temples that were originally some other building, namely the Provo City Center Temple, the Vernal, Utah Temple, the Copenhagen Temple, and there may have been more, I don't know, but those are the 3 just off the top of my head that were not built to be temples, and now they are. And so why couldn't that be the case with these cathedrals? It'd be a shame to just throw them away, destroy them, or whatever. And If I had to guess, and it would be a guess, I think that's what's going to happen. And I think that's what he has on his mind. I don't think he's just giving a nice little story about, oh, think about the world and, everything that they've done. He talks about cathedrals first, shows a picture of a cathedral, and not just any cathedral, Notre Dame. And then after that, he talks about temples. It just, to me, it makes sense. So there might be more going on with this Notre Dame Cathedral in having its steeple revealed on the same day that the Salt Lake Temple has its final steeple placed back on top of it. There are no coincidences. There's not. There really isn't. So, okay, let's move on from there. So keep that in mind. We're going to come back to that in just a minute. But let's read some of the details about the Notre Dame Cathedral and the fire, because the church took note of this and responded, and I'll show you what happened. Okay, this is on the church website for Canada. Notre Dame fire is a symbol of rebirth during Holy Week. Don't worry, guys, it's about to get interesting, even more interesting. It was horrible, Benjamin Pissard said, as he watched flames engulf the roof of the famous Notre Dame Cathedral, the most visited tourist attraction in the heart of Paris. People from all over Paris were converging on bridges, watching the smoke rise. A member of the Paris ward of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Pissard lives mere blocks from Notre Dame and said he could feel the heat from the flames as he stood some 200 yards away from the Catholic cathedral while snapping photos to send to the French media. Pissard described, quote, "I passed people crying in the streets, and I personally cried when I sent my pictures to the press. That island is where Paris was born. It is the cradle of Paris." End quote. Presiding Bishop Gerald Causset, who was born in Bordeaux, France, stated, quote, "It is an iconic edifice that testifies to the extraordinary faith and dedication of those who built it. It has been at the heart of the French history and culture for 8 centuries, and all French people embrace it as their own, whatever their religious beliefs." End quote. Bishop Causset and his wife, Sister Valérie Causset, who lived previously in Paris, were in the Boston airport when they received a message from their daughter-in-law in Paris saying Notre Dame was on fire. Bishop Causset explained, quote, "We immediately connected to the French news. First, we had a hard time believing what we saw. Then we realized it was all real. Our hearts broke, and we couldn't help but feel sad, extremely sad," end quote. Later on, the fire, which is believed to have been caused by ongoing construction to restore parts of the cathedral's roof, began shortly after 7 p.m. on Monday, April 15th. Quote, "It was a sad and unfortunate event," said Father McCarthy. He added, however, that if it had to happen, he couldn't imagine it happening at a better time. The fire began on the Monday of Holy Week, a week in which Christians celebrate the life of the Savior leading up to Easter Sunday in commemoration of his resurrection. Okay, so you guys, look, here's Holy Week, okay? The first day is Palm Sunday. The next day is Monday. Do you remember the April 2023 General Conference? There was a big deal made about Palm Sunday. And I think that's for various reasons. The primary of which would be the fact that I think it's a foreshadowing of the second coming. It's the resurrection, right? It was the actual week where he came into Jerusalem. He was received as king. Many recognized him as Messiah, right? Let me see. I'm looking up this thing here. So he came and he was recognized as Messiah, and then the week led up to his crucifixion, the atonement, and the resurrection, right? Well, we're gonna personally be seeing him. We are gonna in person see him, the resurrected Christ. Up until this point, none of us have. I can't speak for everybody, I guess, but we haven't actually seen him like they did when he was first resurrected. We are gonna have our own resurrected Christ experience, right? And the world is going to acknowledge him as king. Everybody is going to have to acknowledge that he's king. They can still go on with their beliefs. Brigham Young, Joseph Fielding Smith, and others have talked about that there's still going to be all the different religions that we have now, but he is going to be accepted as king, right? So you can see the foreshadowing. You can see the parallel between Holy Week and the second coming, resurrection, him coming as king. You understand. And what I noted on my phrase tracker is that Palm Sunday, a concept that I never really paid any attention to my entire life, being a lifelong member of the church, suddenly became front and center in the April 2023 General Conference. And you can see there's 9 General Conference talks that talked about Palm Sunday. Okay. Before that, it came up a couple times, 2017, once in 2019, 3 talks of 2020. But you go back in time and you don't really hear it very much because, at least from my point of view, it's more of like a Catholic tradition and other Christian denominations that like observe Holy Week more fully, and they have their different traditions. So it's kind of interesting, isn't it, that you don't really see it too much going back in time. And then all of a sudden, during President Nelson's time, now it's a thing, especially in 2023. So with that in mind, let's go back to this. So again, Holy Week, Palm Sunday, the next day, in that particular year, 2019, there was the fire. I feel like that's symbolic by itself. Because when Christ comes, and he may have already come, he may already have been a crowned king, essentially, had his coronation at Adam-ondi-Ahman, or at least the first session of Adam-ondi-Ahman, which we may not be aware of. He could already be here. He could already be king officially. And we know that from the time of Adam-ondi-Ahman on, that's when we have the fall of nations, as well as the great and abominable church. And I'm not calling the Catholic Church the great and abominable church. It's all churches and belief systems that are not the true church. So here you have a symbol in Holy Week where you have Palm Sunday, right? Christ comes. And then the very next day, you have this fire that takes place at the Notre Dame Cathedral. Okay, we're looking at symbolism here. And then now, close to this time that we're all looking at, 2024, 2025, 2026, when things are coming together, a time where a lot of us think the second coming could happen. You have this thing not completely destroyed, but now it's renovated and it's new, right? The rebirth, the resurrection of the Notre Dame Cathedral. And it's very possible, like I said, that this cathedral may become a temple. So isn't that very fitting? Holy Week, Christ comes, this burns, and then it's resurrected, prepared for the millennium. You understand? That very well could be what's going on here. Okay, continuing, Father McCarthy went on to explain, if there is a moment when Christians should be ready to mourn the death of something, but to believe in the resurrection of something, it's Holy Week. It is my belief that something is going to rise from these ashes. Yeah, and it's probably going to be this cathedral turning into a temple. I really think so. Maybe, Father McCarthy, maybe you're going to become the temple president of the Notre Dame Cathedral. Okay, like if you accept the gospel and become a member of our church. Okay, said Bishop Cosse, quote, Notre Dame belongs to all of us. I would like to tell my brothers and sisters of all of the Catholic faith that we stand all around them to support them and sustain them in rebuilding this beautiful place, end quote. Bishop Cosse added that members of the church experienced a similar loss in recent years when the historic Provo Tabernacle caught fire. But we experienced a beautiful rebirth into a temple, right? Look at that. In this article talking about Notre Dame Cathedral, we're looking at this example of a time when a building that was something else was repurposed and turned into a temple. And in that story, hopefully you're aware of this detail. One of the things that came out of it was this painting of the second coming. And as you can see, the entire thing had been burnt black, except for Christ, the millennial Messiah, Christ. That part of the painting survived. I don't think that's an accident. I do not. I think we should take that seriously. Excuse me, especially in light of Notre Dame Cathedral. I think that this could be a foreshadowing of Notre Dame Cathedral and other cathedrals and mosques, synagogues, you name it, that will eventually become temples. I truly believe that. I'll put the link for this in the description box below. This is one that you should save. This was just incredible that this happened. Let's see. Let's look at the other pictures. They're not really good. It's kind of like low resolution pictures, but so there it is. There it was before the fire, or as the fire was taking place, because you can see these like charred. Well, I don't know what that is, but you can see smoke. So this is like immediately before it caught fire. And then here are the firefighters pulling it out. It's incredible. Okay. Continuing. So I just hope that will happen in the same way that our brothers and sisters of the Catholic faith will see that beautiful building being reborn and becoming again a house of worship for thousands of people. End quote. Bishop Cossé concluded that the fire at Notre Dame, quote, is a tragic loss beyond words that all French people and millions of others around the world will feel deep in their heart. Reconstruction Reconstruction will be long and complex, but I have no doubt Notre Dame will one day rise from the ashes, end quote. Don't worry, it gets even more interesting. Okay, this is Church Newsroom. President Nelson pens personal note of sympathy to Pope Francis after Notre Dame fire. Okay. President Russell M. Nelson of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints wrote words of comfort and encouragement to Pope Francis in the wake of the devastating fire at the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris, April 15th, 2019. There's that date again. April of 2019. That's when this happened. Well, what happened before that? In his letter, President Nelson expressed profound sadness at the damage done to the sacred structure that has stood for more than 800 years. President Nelson, the leader of a 16.3 million member faith community, told the Bishop of Rome that his thoughts immediately went to him and that many beloved friends in the many beloved friends in the Catholic faith. He said he is heartbroken by the tragedy to such an ageless symbol of faith and shares his feelings of grief. President Nelson said he prays Notre Dame will rise again in newness of life. Now, that may be a little bit more prophetic than what we had originally realized, especially if it becomes a temple in the future. Now, look at this. The month before this happened, in March 2019, President Nelson and President M. Russell Ballard of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles visited Pope Francis at the Vatican in Rome, Italy, the day before President Nelson dedicated the Rome, Italy temple. What are the chances of that the president of our church, the one that's preparing the church and the world for the second coming, and as part of the second coming, we know there's going to be the fall of nations and the great and abominable church, and many people are going to be leaving us pretty soon. Although there's still going to be Catholics, we just don't know how many after this is all said and done. But we have the president of the church who meets for the first time. It's the first time that any president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints has met with a pope. He does that, and then this happens. Seemingly, the Notre Dame Cathedral starting its process of potentially becoming a new temple in the future with this renovation. When was, Rome, Italy temple dedication. What day did that take place? From March 10th to March 12th. Okay, so Yeah, almost exactly a month after it was dedicated. That's when the Notre Dame Cathedral caught fire. My goodness. Oh, you know what? I need to put this on my Second Coming timeline because I don't want to forget this detail. He visits, and then it burns. All right, next. This is also church news. President Nelson sends message of comfort to Pope Francis after Notre Dame fire. On Monday, April 15th, President Russell M. Nelson offered words of comfort to Pope Francis after the devastating Notre Dame Cathedral fire. According to Newsroom, President Nelson expressed in a letter his profound sadness at the damage, quote, profound sadness at the damage done to this sacred structure that has stood for more than 800 years, end quote. He also told the Bishop of Rome that his thoughts, quote unquote, immediately went to him and his friends of the Catholic faith, and that he prays that Notre Dame will rise again in newness of life. On April 18th, President Nelson's Twitter account posted about the church leader's letter of sympathy addressed to the Pope. Quote, okay, so this is from his Twitter. Upon learning of the fire at Notre Dame Cathedral, I wrote at Pontifex, I guess the Pope's, Twitter account, Pope Francis, to express that Latter-day Saints are remembering our Catholic brothers and sisters. We pray that Notre Dame will rise again in newness of life. And how fitting would that be, again, if it's turned into a temple? It would definitely have newness of life if that happened. I don't need this one up. Okay, now there are other things going on right now when it comes to cathedrals and different buildings, but one that really stands out to me is the Sagrada Familia in Barcelona. I served in the Spain-Barcelona mission. It was one of the best times of my life, one of the best things I've ever done. If you're debating whether you should go on a mission, like if especially, well, if you're a priesthood holder, right? We know that that's a requirement. That's something that the Lord expects of all male members of the church. Please do it. You're not going to regret it. It is something that you should definitely do, and you will be blessed for it. And it's an irreplaceable experience. Now, I was very excited when they announced the Barcelona temple. Before that point, there was only the other one, the only other one in Spain, which was the Madrid temple, which has been around for a while. But Barcelona is getting one. They even have a rendering out for it. But in Barcelona, one of the main landmarks is the Sagrada Familia. Let's see. Let me see if I can find it. Just like there it is. It stands out immediately. Of course, Google Earth is not going to really do it justice, but it's a gigantic cathedral that you can pretty much see anywhere in this valley. It just like it stands out like a sore thumb, and it's very intricate, and it's been under construction ever since, let me get the date, ever since the 19th of March, 1882. So this is like a project of just epic proportions, the Sagrada Familia. I did a video. I would encourage you to watch it because it was a really good video talking about the implications of this and when this is completed, because I think this very well could be another one of those things, just like Notre Dame, just like the Salt Lake Temple, that could be ready before or shortly after the second coming. It is currently scheduled to be complete the same time as the Salt Lake Temple, in 2026. At least like the majority of it. There's still going to be like smaller things that are going to take place, like smaller things that they need to do. But the main part of it is going to be completed in 2026. Okay. We've looked at the fact. I'll just give you a few facts about this. You have, I think it's this one right here. You have what's called the four facades of the cathedral. And the one facing south is called, let me pull it up, Facade of Glory. And guess what it represents? Or guess what it corresponds to? Facade of Glory, made up of the second coming, of Jesus Christ amid the clouds at the end of times. So here's what it's supposed to look like, right? Again, I've done a video about this. There's so much more to talk about. So I'll put the link for this in the description box below. There's a lot to talk about. So make sure to check it out. But here's another one. Here's like a depiction of what it's supposed to look like, colored. It's a low resolution image, but it's supposed to be like really colorful and really neat looking. So we have this one that's on the way, and it's seems to be coinciding with the Soli Temple and the Notre Dame Cathedral. Right? We've talked about, what else did I want to talk about? Is there anything else? We've also talked about the Dome of the Rock and how this could be natural fulfillment of prophecy. A lot of people are of like the staunch opinion that no, the Dome of the Rock cannot be the temple. But I would say to you, why? There's nothing that says clearly exactly how it's supposed to be or even where it's supposed to be. Believe me, I've looked into it. There's only two people. There's one person that I know of, Charles W. Penrose, that said that it had to be on the Temple Mount. Okay, fine. And then Bruce R. McConkie said it very possibly it could be on the Temple Mount. So we don't have anything that firmly says it has to be there, but it could. I'm looking at the BYU Jerusalem Center. It can be turned into a temple. In fact, right now there's no students there. So if like all of a sudden it needs to happen, it could happen. But we already have the Dome of the Rock there. And the Dome of the Rock was actually patterned after nearby Christian cathedrals, of all things. And it very well could have been built by Jews, and it probably was. It says that they hired Christians. And remember, around that time, it's not like all Jews remain Jews. We had, it kind of bothers me when we talk about the Jews rejecting the Savior, because it's not all Jews that rejected the Savior. There were a number of them that accepted him, and they became Christians. And so the building of the Dome of the Rock, I'm pretty sure that many of them were either converted Muslims or Christians, and there were probably even some Jews themselves that were involved in the construction of that building. But again, with a renovation, you can do whatever you need to do to make it into a temple. So keep an open mind, be flexible, don't be rigid, don't think that you know everything. So anyway, I think that's all that I have to talk about. But isn't it just amazing that we're seeing these things right now? For me, this is kind of mind-blowing to look at this. When I went there in from 2004 to 2006, these like big spires right here, or at least like this one and definitely this one, were not there. All I remember was like this facade on this side, and then this side over here. You know, you have these four towers, and then you have this like thing down here, this facade. But it's really, dang, it's really come along quite nicely. It is, oh my gosh, it is so majestic. So there you go. Another interesting happening. Again, thank you, Jen, from the Christian Fire Poppy channel. Again, make sure to watch her video about it. She's probably realized more about it than what I've talked about here, or noticed like different details. But that's going to be it for this one. So if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it, leave your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. Also make sure to share it, and I'll talk to you guys later.